Everybody was mad at me on Twitter the other day because of a video that I made screaming in my car. Oh, it's getting pretty old, they said. Never seen this one before, they said sarcastically. And every time I would see a tweet like that, where's the camera now? Oh God. Every time I saw a tweet like that, I don't even know what word I'm allowed to say for this in a YouTube video, because we live in a puritanical society where I can't even refer to the act of lovemaking. Otherwise, I'm going to get demonetized. Love is a beautiful thing. It's not obscene. I think there's so much that we don't understand about human psychology and human sexuality and, sort of just the way that our brains work and the way that our brains process that sort of thing. And it is interesting if you think about it, because we sort of evolved, to be in the jungle, right? I mean, if you look at the wolves and the squirrels and the moose that are all running around and the birds, that's us. We just sort of got just smart enough that we could build an office. And we could, have money, and we could basically, and Wikipedia, we're just barely there. That only happened very, very recently. So we're still very much wild in here, if that makes sense. Typically, the way that it would work is the copywriters, who are some of the dumbest people in the creative arts, you can call it that, it's not an art. But they would come up with some stupid copy, which is basically a word for words that are on the screen, or words that you are in. It's just what it says, but they call it copy so that they can feel like they're Don Draper, This makes me sick, these people. Because they think, the worst part is that they think they're creative and they think that they're like artists, but really all they're doing is coming up with insidious ways to pervert art and stuff it down people's throats so that they buy crap. It is the most sickening, heinous way that you can distort the human experience of art. It's awful and I hate it. But sadly, that is the only way that you can really make a living as an artist, especially when you're first starting out. Some people can't even do that. So anyway, I think that something that we also don't understand is how the human brain interacts with the computer, I think. Because we're starting to see now the first generations of children who were on the computer since they were very, very young. And so to me, I don't know if this is the right word, analogous, but it's like when you're looking at the computer for a very, very long time, that is sort of like a second brain. And so then your brain and the second brain start to become one brain, right? And that same thing can happen with our phone and the internet. Our phone, if you think about our phone, it's sort of like an extension of our consciousness. You know what I mean? It's sort of like we took part of our brain and put it in a box that's in our pocket, And they function, it completes the circuit, and they function as one thing. So a lot of this other stuff is sort of muddled in there. And it's hard to parse out exactly. We would get to Friday afternoon or whatever, and they would be like, hey, is there any way that you can have that ready to post on Sunday? And I'd be like, no, the only way I can do that is if I take this home with me. And they were like, okay, if you don't mind. They always would say it like that, because it was like they were aware of the fact that they were terrible bosses, but they felt like if they were self-aware and they were like, oh, I'm such a shitty boss asking you to work on the weekend, right? Then suddenly it made it okay, made them feel less bad about it. What is normal? Why do we feel the things that we do? What do we not? What is inside here? And then a question I've always wondered is everybody Jeffrey Dahmer? And it just takes a few things to sort of like, I had a psychology teacher once who described this sort of stuff as being like, you're a glass of water. So the amount that your glass is already full is your genetic predispositions. And then as your life goes on and things happen to you, that is the water that gets added to the glass. And then when your glass overflows, that's when it becomes something that affects your day-to-day life. And I always thought that was very interesting because it makes a lot of sense. But at the same time, it doesn't make sense at all. And I think that that just really goes to show how little we understand about human psychology, right? I immediately, obviously, snapped back to reality, and I mean, it's scary when you know, I don't know if any of you have ever been pulled over or stopped by the police, but it's very scary. I mean, they're murderers, you know? They're basically a gang of serial killers that the state pays to go roaming around. Anyway, I was sort of thinking maybe they are just polite, you know, because I don't know, that they're trying to de-escalate the situation or whatever bullshit propaganda they try to tell everybody. So anyway, I am very anti-cop. Just so you know, a cop, obviously. I don't know if that's going to get me in trouble on here, you know, but do you ever get in a situation where your brain just sort of, you know, it's sort of like you're watching your body do something, and your brain is sort of doing something else. I just want to know what I did wrong, because I just want to know why she hasn't texted me. Why didn't she text me back? Did I do something wrong? I thought I was being nice. I thought I was being a good friend. I had a guy once quote tweet me and say, "Oh, another funny selfie," laughing emoji. And it was very clear that he was very insecure, because I was like, okay, you're going to insult the fact that I posted a funny selfie. So you have a problem with 70% of contemporary comedy?
You idiots will do anything but ignore somebody who wants attention. When you're scrolling on your social media and you see something that upsets you, why can't you just scroll away? Why do you have to let it consume every second of your attention, every fiber of your brain? You have to share it. You have to retweet it. You have to like it. You have to let everyone know that you are better than me. You have to let everyone know that you're smart. Your morals are superior. You know why this is wrong. You know what people are supposed to do. If you felt whole, if you felt like you had everything that you needed in life, you would be able to ignore me. But you can't. It's not possible. Because you need me to be a bad person more than I need me to be a good person.
In conjunction with the anger issues, I also have, I think, I've never been diagnosed, but I think that I have a little bit of autism, because every night I go to the same restaurant, Zanku Chicken it's called, and I order the same thing, and I have my little routine every night where I have to go park in, I'm not going to give away, I'm not going to dox myself, but I park in the same parking spot every single night. And if that, so that's always when I'm driving over there, I'm actually very anxious, and sometimes I have a panic attack because I want my parking spot to be there, and if the parking spot's not there, then it honestly can ruin my entire night, because because I like that parking spot because I get claustrophobic also, so I like it. It's a corner spot, and that means I can see the road and I can see the trees and I can see all down the street. There's just a lot of things that can go wrong, and so I'm always really, really on edge every night because I really want everything to be perfectly and exactly the way that I want it. And if one thing is not exactly the way that I want it, then there's going to be a severe problem. And it's the difference between me having an amazing night that is euphorically wonderful and me having possibly the worst night of my entire life. Could be one of those little details. I put it in the VCR and I pressed play, and it was my grandpa with a very nice looking young woman, you know. And then he cut her head off. Literally, I was like, whoa! Because you had to put the VHS tape into the VCR, and then you have to start, there's a software that you have to start and I was like, whoa! I turn over to look at the TV, and I just see, it's crazy to me that there's a timer or a clock superimposed on the video, so it counts through this, literally like the minutes and the hours. So it'll be like September 12th on 2002, 11:41 a.m. And then it also has the seconds on there, and it counts the seconds up and up and up. And so it's crazy to see the stuff happening, and then to look at the seconds counter counting up, because it's like, I'm getting chills just thinking about it. It's like, this is a moment in history that has been embalmed, basically, in this video. It's literally like we took that moment and put it in a bottle, literally a bottle, because it was the camera, and preserved it forever in amber. It's crazy. And I'm sorry, I'm really getting into this, but I've always been kind of a film guy and all that stuff. So that sort of thing has always interested me, and I'm fascinated by it. So anyway, like, I remember people telling me that, people still tell me that about my family that died, my wife and my baby, you know. People will say, well, how come I'm so casual about it, and I make jokes about it all the time. And people will say to me, they're kind of taken aback. And I'm like, well, I have to live every single day with the knowledge that this happened. If I walk around every day and I'm crying my eyes out constantly, then I'm not going to be functional. I'm going to jump off a cliff. So I have had to sort of callous over it and not care anymore. That's the only way I can live. I have a lot of thoughts that I think are pretty revolutionary about grief, and about how, in my experience, grieving is bad when it initially happens. But then there's a certain point where grieving becomes wallowing and victimizing yourself and saying, oh, woe is me, you know, I'm so sad. At a certain point, you have to just kind of get over it. And I think I know that again sounds very callous, but you will see if something, I don't know if any of you have ever lost people, but I'm sure that you would all agree, eventually you get over it and you don't really care anymore. That's just the way that it is. It's not that you don't love them, it's just you forget what they were like. So how could you miss them because they're not around anymore? I'm sorry, this wasn't what the video was supposed to be about, but I'm so sick of people saying you're a psychopath, you don't care, you're why you have this attitude about it. And that's not the case at all. That's not the case at all. Well, I guess it is the case. It's just that it's not for the reasons that you think. Or maybe it is for the reasons that you think. And it's just that what you think isn't bad. You know what I mean? It's not bad people say psychopath, but we need psychopaths in a lot of areas of life. We need, my surgeon, if I have to get surgery, brain surgery, I don't want my surgeon being like, oh my God, I'm cutting a guy's head off. Oh. I want him to be even-keeled, not caring at all. And I want him to slice and dice me like a piece of lunch meat. Psychopaths get a bad rap, honestly, in this society. You know, we think psychopaths are people like Ted Bundy and my grandfather, which that is a portion of them, but a much, much larger portion are actually very functional members of society, and it's not a bad thing at all. I've thought about that. I'll probably make a video at one point, you know, sort of trying to destigmatize psychopathy in the future, but not today. That's not really what I want to talk about right now.
I told you that we needed to go back further, but you told me, oh, the focal length. Oh,